Broadcasting from coastal California to coastal North Carolina.
East to west, Pacific to Atlantic, nutrition to fitness.
iPickFit is here to deliver realistic, scientific, and sustainable resolutions to optimal total body health.
We are your hosts, Danny and Danielle Duravage, two experts united that will detox, repair, and revolutionize your life. iPickFit.
Hey everybody, welcome to the iPickFit podcast. We are here with your host,
Danny Duravage
and Danielle Duravage, and today we have Josue and Michael, newly fiancéed together couple who has been doing the ketogenic diet. And we're going to bring you the positive side of the ketogenic diet and the healthy things that can come along with it. So Danny has a little disclaimer we always want to introduce you with when we're talking about medical things and that might be out of our scope. So here we go.
Yes. So again, we do have degrees. I have my degree in biochemistry. Danielle has hers in sport and fitness. I'm not NASM certified nutrition coach, and she is NASM certified weight loss management specialist and a fitness nutrition specialist. But we're not medical doctors or registered dietitians just yet. So this isn't meant to contradict what your doctor recommends, prescribes. If you have a medical condition or are taking medication, please talk with your medical team about what's best for you and any questions that you have for your specific needs. So last episode, we talked about keto diet. We talked about what it is and, what a lot of textbooks can talk about it and different ways to go about it. So we just wanted to bring in our cousin and her fiance about what their positive journey is with it. So, you guys, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure.
Hey, I'm Michael. I'm 26. I'm a flight attendant. We live in Los Angeles. We got our start with keto probably about a little over a year ago. Josue.
Cool. Yeah. I'm Josue. I'm 28. I'm a producer in advertising. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's kind of an office job with a lot of stress.
So are you saying you could advertise for our podcast?
A new client.
When I launch my own agency, yes,
You're like,
we're looking for new clients always.
You're like, if you pay for it.
But yeah, like Michael was saying, we kind of had a year. We started about a year ago, and what she didn't mention was that we were in New York when we did it. So
that's
we
amazing.
just recently moved back in July.
Cool. That's awesome. So New York to LA, what's it feel like to go straight from like New York to LA? Because it's a complete different vibe. You guys are from California, but you went to New York, rocked it out. Are you happy to be back?
It was a totally different world, like to go to New York in the first place. Coming from, I grew up in a small town in California, and I think Josue was more like in an Inland Empire area also when we were growing up, and then went to college in Orange County. So just not very like city vibe. It's more like suburbia kind of thing, beach vibes. And then New York is just like a totally different world, like very fast paced. Everybody's kind of grinding and hustling for themselves, and you had to either like keep going or move to the side because you're going to get in people's way kind of thing.
What's funny though, like I'm from Indiana, so like I know both. Well, I've never been to New York, but like when you say that, I'm like still Inland Empire is completely extremely fast paced compared to where I'm from, or even where I live now in North Carolina. But yeah, so like, do you miss New York at all?
This is Josue. I definitely do miss New York a lot. I think that there's a lot of good things that came out of it, and a lot of challenges that were also experienced over there. It's kind of a culture shock, like going from driving all the time to not driving all the time and having to that's a huge change on my body, especially.
Yeah. Do you get like back
to walk
pain
everywhere? Yeah, definitely. Like definitely the first 3 weeks out there, like plantar fasciitis, got back pain.
Yeah.
It was like a lot of different medical things on top of some of the stuff that I was already experiencing. So I think it was a very huge like shift for me. But there was a lot of good positive things that I got out of it. Got me walking more, got me more active. And that's where I discovered keto with Michael, actually.
Yeah. So Danny was going to ask the first question. Let's
So
get it.
what led you guys to keto?
So Sway actually was sort of diagnosed with a condition called Cushing's disease, Cushing Syndrome. There was a lot of challenges that came with that. Like he was seeing an endocrinologist among a bunch of other doctors on her team, and they couldn't figure out the source of his cortisol level imbalance, which is kind of what Cushing's disease or Cushing syndrome is an overproduction of cortisol. So they couldn't find a source, and he was then put on a variety of different medications, ranging from steroids to things for hypertension to preventative things like beta blockers and all sorts of different stuff to try to just level out his body, since his body wasn't doing it on its own. But because of that mix of medications, it kind of led him to, obviously, like steroids make you gain weight or just make weight more difficult to lose. And then there was a lot of other conditions like side effects that he was dealing with because of the medication. And that was for about a year before there was any, even remotely any answers or progress that had to go with that. And his doctor had recommended the anti-inflammatory diet, just kind of eliminating different like grains and I think
tomatoes and peppers.
So there was like some recommendation there, but nothing she wasn't very like pushing it and saying like you should do this. It was kind of like, well, if
these are options available.
Yeah, like, and like if you want to try something
with trial and error, because we have no studies.
And there was just not that much guidance. I mean, she's not a dietitian, so I get that, but it would have maybe been nice to meet with a dietitian and talk about like, oh, you know, he's having some issues with his heart because of these medications that he's being put on. So like,
but even then, even there was times where I was in the hospital where they would bring nutritionists over to kind of put me on their regimen for my time in the hospital. And a lot of that stuff was just standard, like anti-inflammatory diets, I felt, or things that she had already discussed about. And like, oh, maybe you should eat potatoes after I've been told don't eat potatoes. So it was like very confusing on me.
Or for anyone, like they're just like throwing all this information. But like one thing, like cortisol is a stress hormone. So when your stress hormone is extremely high, like on a super high level, a lot of our bodies produce a lot of fat. So like just in general, like fat inside the body to like, it's like a shock factor thing. So our body's just like, holy crap, I don't know what's going on. So let's just like produce like fat in our body at a rapid rate, especially when it's extremely high. So it really makes sense. But then they're like not telling you how to like help that aspect of it. They'll give you medication to control certain levels of it, but it's like, how do we stop that?
And they were also saying too, like with Cushing's disease, sometimes you can experience like just bone weakness and like even leading to bone loss if it progresses for that long. And so they had literally told him like, you're not allowed to work out. Like you cannot exercise because your body's not strong enough to be able to accommodate that, to be honest. So it was like, you need to lose weight, but you can't work out. So you need to figure something else out.
Yeah.
Well, you're in New York, so you have to walk. So he's in pain all the time because his hips hurt or his back hurts or whatever. And then he just keeps gaining weight because he can't work out and he has to take 13 medicines. You know, it was just like
and that's stressful
so much.
In itself without
that
even like having levels of cortisol. Like that's stressful.
And there's side effects to every single medication. Like that's why there's a disclaimer on like TV shows that we see all the time. You're like, holy shit, like sorry, now we're going to be in the E.
There was times where I was like extremely just felt weak off the medication. I had very low testosterone levels. Like I wasn't just, you know, depression also kind of had a factor into that. And I didn't understand. I'm like, oh, wow. But like my body was just chemically imbalanced at this point.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I think it was around November when I heard my first like, oh, you should try the keto diet. And one of my brothers was actually doing it with his wife in Texas. And he's like, yeah, like there's this really good documentary. Of course, everything starts with documentary, I feel.
No, but thank goodness they're there because like I totally dive in.
And I was like, that sounds interesting. And he was trying to explain it to me, like, and like the whole science behind it. I wasn't really too like open to hearing about it. I was just like, okay, like I've been vegetarian. And like the other thing was like I was being vegetarian this whole time, so I'm like I'm already being healthy, and like but even that's not helping. So it's like, what's really gonna help?
Right.
But I think it was when Michael brought it up again later that year that I really started to pay more attention to it.
Yeah, we had a big conversation in I think on Christmas actually, a couple years ago, and it stemmed from like a bunch of other things, but basically it broke down to like, hey, I mean, nothing else has worked. And like, I'm at the point where like, I love you and I want to like continue my life with you. And so we need to like figure something else out. So like, what do we have to lose? Like, let's just try this. I've done a lot of research. I probably researched for about a month before talking to him about it, and just looking into like what a recipe would look like, or like, why do I need to care what a net carb is? Like, what does that even mean? Kind of a thing. And just like trying to understand like if this would be something that would be beneficial. And then having that conversation wasn't necessarily easy, but it was very well received. And I think we had discussed that like January 3rd would be like our start date kind of a thing. So like a New Year's resolution type of thing, but still having to have that like last piece of whatever at like the New Year's parties and stuff. So, and it was really good. And then I think at first it was kind of just like, oh, like he just would eat whatever I would make kind of a thing. And I was still experimenting with it too, like actually like really getting started. But then I noticed like probably after a week, he would message me like while he was at work or something, and he'd be like, hey, can I eat this? Is this keto? And I would either say yes or no. But I also didn't want to like push too much on him at one time, because keto's a lot to kind of digest, like trying to understand it really from like the educational perspective. And then it started getting more into questions like, why can I eat this, or why can I not eat this? And like, what is a net carb, and how do I figure that out? And he kind of just like really delved into it, just being more inquisitive about that kind of stuff. And then I was kind of like, haha, gotcha. Because then he was like wanting to really be educated about it. And then once you have like those foundational things, you can really just like go off and do whatever you want. You don't have to necessarily look from a cookbook or from other people's experiences or whatever, and then that's when you start being able to listen to your body and say like, oh, maybe I did have my whatever carbs for today, but like, I'm okay having this too. Or like, oh, I know that what this feeling is like, I don't know. You get to like kind of understand where your body's at with all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there any point, like, I think it's amazing how supportive Michael has been through this process, because like you said, like sometimes he's going through the medical stuff and he's taking the medication and he's going through like the process through depression and pain and plantar fasciitis and just walking hurts. And like, you're like, you know what, we're going to do this. We're going to do this together. And I'm going to research it in times that like maybe like he may have not had like the strength in the brain, like when you're going through something medical, everything's so stressful, and he's already having cortisol levels to like 1,000,000. Yeah, like when you have cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone, already here, like thank God that Michael is a part of this journey, because you were able to be like, you know what, I'm going to take lead and I'm going to make this recipe for you and be there when you have questions, because like we got to fit, like you took charge, and I think that's amazing. Like the supporting aspect of it, because sometimes, I mean, it's hard for both of you because you're loving somebody going through it too. Like, but you had to be strong too. So I just think it's amazing, like awesome.
Yeah, I think it was definitely like hard to see, and then like being frustrated that doctors didn't have answers, and like the people that you're supposed to go to that are supposed to have these answers, that they're supposed to be helping you, and like all like you get on all this medicine that's supposed to make you feel better, and it doesn't, and it just makes things worse. And it's like, how, I don't know, you just feel so helpless. It was like so hard to like go through and to experience.
Well, to that point, I mean, I do think that the doctors were trying everything that they thought was necessary for me. Like they literally made me go through so many exams, like not just once, not just twice. Like they wanted to make sure that they could verify the first exam if it failed or something like that, or if I needed to redo something. So I think that my doctor was very, very involved with my case, to the point where she's like, anytime you need to come in, like I'm clearing my schedule for you.
Wow.
She would always like, go see this specialist and talk to them and see what their opinion is. Go talk to this person and see what their opinion is. And it just kind of got like brought up even into their conferences and their seminars, where they would like discuss my case.
Even.
And yeah, and like a lot of the doctors are just like, I don't even know where to pin it. Like you kind of have it under Cushing's, but it could maybe not even be that. Like nobody really knew ever what was up with me. And I think that for what it was, the medication did just keep me alive
Right.
until something had to give.
Till Michael came to save the day.
Yeah. And it was part like, getting just that motivated by her, but also part desperation of like, I've tried everything. So why not?
Why
That's what I mean. Like we literally had nothing to lose, and it was kind of like we're at the point where it's just like, I mean,
yeah,
let's just do it. Let's just, I mean,
Like, fuck
let's
it.
just see
Who
what happens.
cares? I already said cuss words, so we're in the explicit. No, when I put this on, and if I say one cuss word, we're like explicit. And I'm like, we're so gangster. So sorry, everybody. I said a couple cuss words, so now it's fair game. We'll be next to Joe Rogan. Welcome. Welcome to the I Pick Fit podcast. We are explicit. But no, like that is amazing how like all of that came together for you guys, because, Cushing syndrome, like I've never read about it until like I've heard like you having it, and really there's not a lot of studies about it. It's still kind of a phenomenon, like and medically, like they don't know what causes it, where it comes from, whether it's like fully genetic or hereditary, like
stress.
Or stress just like causes it. Do you have any family members that like you've ever heard of that before you were diagnosed?
No, not necessarily. A lot of my dad's family turn off. A lot of my dad's family is diabetic.
Right. But you were not though, right?
And I was not. That was the first thing that I had tested myself for, because I was like, I know that my dad had just passed away from diabetes and all these other issues. And a lot of the family on his side are diabetic. So I was like, I went in, and that's the first time I went and got tested. I was like, I don't feel good. I think it might be diabetes. Can you please test me for that? Yeah. And they're like, well, it's definitely not diabetes, but it's something very similar. And so that's when they're like, you should probably go talk to an endocrinologist.
Okay.
So that's
definitely on the hormonal side.
Yeah, it's more on the hormonal side. And so that's kind of like where that stems from. But yeah.
So when what was it like going to the doctor and saying, you know what, I've been trying keto, and did you ask them if you should, or did you just do it and say, screw it, like this is what me and Michael want to do?
No, I was very strategic about how I brought it up, because my doctor was also very straightforward, and she's like,
she's a typical New Yorker.
Yeah, typical New Yorker. Like, you better be doing what I'm telling you to do, and like, don't skew off it. Yeah. And I was like, fair. That's fine. But I think it took 1 month into ketosis where I was already like, I had already gone through a couple weeks of doing it, and I started to seeing results. And first in weight loss. Like weight loss. Yeah, in the form of weight loss. And I'm like, wow, I'm like drastically losing weight. It could be like because I walk to work all the time. It could also be because I'm eating differently, like I'm changing my diet. But I had never seen anything like this. So I was like already like, what the hell's happening? Yeah. So I had gone in to go talk to my doctor a couple times. And every time I go, we always do blood work. Mm-hmm. And she's like, hey, it looks like things are like, maintaining, like whatever. It's cool. But I don't think it was until maybe 3 months into it where we went back to do my blood work. And she got the results, and she's like, what's going on? She's like, why does everything look like everything was getting back to normal levels? Yeah. And I was like, oh, and she basically was like, what are you doing? She like called me out on it immediately. And I said, honestly, like I started changing the way that I eat, and I never said I'm doing keto. Yeah. I just said I'm doing a high fat like nutrition with very low carb, some protein in there, no sugar, because that's the biggest thing for that one. Well, like a carb. And she's like, okay, like go ahead and keep doing that. Like we'll keep bringing you back in for a test. After that session, I was like, okay, looks like things are going back to normal. I took it upon myself to slowly start weaning myself off medication. So instead of taking all the dosage of everything, I was probably taking like 2 dosages of everything daily, like day and night. I was like, let me just do 1 dosage of it. Yeah. And it was validating for me, 1, with weight loss, 2, with going back every time and checking my blood levels and my cortisol levels and everything was going back to normal. That in my last meeting with her, she like took me in, and she's like, everything is back to normal. I cannot, what the hell happened? And then I told her like, well, I did the keto diet, and I took off all the medication, and then I just maintained my style of like walking and stuff like that. She was shocked. She couldn't believe it. She said, you need to come back once more tomorrow, I think, or the day after, to do just like a second. We're going to do the same exams, And we're just going to take a second look at that again. But she's like, but keep doing what you're doing.
Like,
and I was
she
like,
still encouraged
okay.
you, which is
yeah. She's like, keep doing what you're doing. That's totally fine. Like, don't go back on the medication. Keep eating what you're eating. Like, come back. We're going to do one more exam. And then it was like right before I was about to leave New York, because I had left in June, where she we did the last exam, and then she was just like, you're good. And I was like, what?
You're healthy.
Like, I'm good. Like, I'm like, she's like, yeah, you're back. You're healthy. You're not showing any signs of anything. Like, she's like, I can refer you to an endocrinologist back in California. If you're going to be by USC, she's like, there's some doctors there that can help you out. But she's like, I don't think they're going to be able to tell you anything that you already haven't figured out yourself. So I kind of left New York like super motivated. I'm like, wow, like, I feel like I'm getting my life back and this and that. Which then came in like a different side of keto, because I was like, wow, you're eating so much meat and like bacon and like all these other foods that I was like I started to get grossed out by it.
Oh, yeah,
I started to get grossed out by the
that
food.
makes sense, yeah.
And I was like, wow, I don't really feel like I don't want to eat this like as much anymore. So that's when I took a big sign to myself. I'm like, okay, I need to listen to my body. I've been listening to my body this whole time. It was working for me, and I was like, cool, this is great.
Better. You weren't
and I was
like
feeling
as
better.
exhausted or like in pain.
I think I had lost at that point like 40 something pounds, which was huge for me at that point. I'm like, never would I have imagined what I am right now. I was like, wow, that was never going to be the case.
But at that point, you had been like gaining so much so fast before, which is like,
yeah, I literally gained 80 pounds. When I got to New York, I gained 80 pounds.
From how long did it take you from being like a normal weight, like healthy weight, to gain 80? Like a year or like
to gaining all that?
Yeah.
In I would say a matter of 4 months.
oh my God.
You gained 80 pounds in 4, so 20 pounds.
fast.
Boom, 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 boom. Because then your cortisol levels.
And it was like, I mean, if you look back at pictures, it's like below weight. Like you can tell that it just like his skin doesn't even look like it can accommodate it. It looks like he's gonna explode at any moment. Like it's just like it wasn't even fat almost. Like I don't know if maybe it was, but it just looked like super bloated. And I'm sure there was some fat in there also. But
it could have been like inflammation and all kinds of stuff involved.
Super inflammation, because like I was going right before I had left to New York. Like I was going to the gym every single morning. I'd go and swim a lot. My dad was like, "You're going to the gym every day. Like I don't understand why you look like you're getting bigger to me." And I didn't know either. I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
You're like, "I'm doing HIIT."
And she didn't know either. So when I went to New York and I'm like, I'm just gaining more and more weight. I'm like, what is happening? Like something's clearly wrong.
And you're more active.
Yes,
like,
and I'm more active. Like,
adding exercise and
I was like so baffled. I couldn't believe it. But
well, thank God for Michael to be like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's do some keto. Hey, I already cussed. I can keep going. You guys can too. Apple will catch me. They catch me. They caught Joe that one time. I was like, shit.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
So now I know how it works. So I'm like, listen, if you do it once, we all get to. It's like a game. We're on the Eat. We'll have 2 episodes of Eat. But anyways, not about that. But so crazy. Like, what was it like, Michael, as like somebody who's supporting someone going through a medical condition and then like going through this process? Like, do you feel what was it like watching him gain weight so rapidly? Like, were you like confused or scared or?
Yeah, I was really confused. I think I was in denial for a really long time also. I was like, nothing's happening. Like, he's fine. And then when I got like undeniable, I even still was like, well, he's like going to the doctor. So like, it's not like he's trying to be unhealthy, blah, blah, blah.
And like, you knew what he was eating. Like, you're like, he's plant-based or
yeah.
That was another thing though. It's like, although it was vegetarian, like it was pretty much like, as long as it didn't have meat in it, it was fair game. And that's like almost, I mean, it's not the best way to go about things. And I think now because of keto, I've like become more of a conscious eater. Mm-hmm. I understand more like what a vegetarian or a whole food plant-based diet would look like. As a lifestyle. And that is not what we were doing. We were just not eating meat, essentially.
Oh, in the beginning?
Yeah.
Vegetarian.
And like while he was getting bigger and stuff, you know, and I think like I kind of blamed myself a little bit, at the beginning, like for the foods that I would make or like for having the guilty pleasures of like wanting to go out and like have dessert or like,
Cocktails
if we were to go
or-
out and like, have a drink or something like that.
Pasta in New York. Come on.
Yeah.
Pasta. I mean, you're in New
all the
York.
things.
Pizza and pasta is like an
All the
Italian
things. But then when
delicacy.
we like started going through and like finding out that it was like more related to a medical condition, and then even further, like when it seemed like he was getting bigger because of a lot of the medications also. And that was something that was like, I was like, well, it's like a catch-22. Like if he doesn't do it, he gets in this really terrible position health-wise that could cost him his life essentially. But if he does do it, like then he's gaining all of this weight. And I know it's almost even more torture.
Yeah.
It almost feels more like, he's like torturing
Or like
himself.
a double-edged sword, because you're like, there are certain medications, like I know, like that you can take that cause you to become stagnant because it's controlling your blood sugar level. For example, like someone who's diabetic, they're gonna the blood sugar is gonna control and stay at this or was statin or certain different. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Just like flow with me, but like it'll keep the blood sugar at one level, but like it's not gonna like drop or go high or like fluctuate with the body's normal processing with your organs. So like it's just going to continue to keep the fat where it is versus like allowing your body to decrease or increase. Does that make
And
sense?
not knowing that that's like what's happening was
Yeah.
even more like difficult to realize too, is like, well, this didn't used to happen before. So like, why is it happening now? Kind of a thing. And I don't know. It was just confusing, not having answers. And then like it gave me a different perspective on the medical field in general, because I was like,
Sure.
wow, these people really don't know. Like, I mean, it's all just like research, like if they don't have the answers, they're like looking for them. And at first I was like, why don't you have the answers? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And then realizing like a lot of it is all research based. So I started doing my own research and like trying to understand the medications that he would be put on when he was in the hospital, or like the medications that he was taking even just on a daily basis, and what their purpose was and what that meant. Like if you were to tell me like, oh, you're taking this because it's a beta blocker, I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Like, I don't know. So looking into that more, like also just, I think I just became like more concerned from like a loving perspective. Like I'm just like, there's nothing that I can do other than educate myself. Like I can't make you feel better. I can't do anything. I can just support you. So let me just try to figure this out. And like,
but you're doing like the best thing that anyone could possibly do, because you're making sure there's food in the food in the refrigerator is going to support him, on top of like, encouraging him through it. Like, hey, just keep going to the doctor. Just like I'm going to research it. Like, cause he's exhausted. He's the one feeling like the crazy aspect. He's the one like, having to deal with it, although like you're loving him through it, which is so hard too, like to love someone through the process of like medical issues, like, and I think that you play a very vital role in the process of this. I think for people to understand, like always, like me and Danny are always like talking about like, look out for your friend, look out for the people you love, because like sometimes they get blinded by certain things, and you need somebody to just be like, hey, like, let me look this up for you.
Yeah, I think I had a good support system too. Like people were coming to me like, hey, is everything okay? And like, like whether it be that they noticed that Josue seemed like he wasn't like feeling well, or we weren't at certain events, or we kind of stopped when we were living in New York. We were flying back to California really often, and then we kind of stopped. And a lot of that did stem like from his doctor telling us like, oh, you guys are just flying too much. Like she just didn't have anything else to like blame it on. So it was kind of like she was looking for anything. Yeah. So we stopped flying for a little bit. And I think I remember like a couple of times where people that I love were like, hey, like just checking in, what's going on, kind of a thing.
Hello.
And yeah. And I think during that time, like I had also gained a little bit of weight. So I'm like, oh, it's just happy weight. Like, it was our first 2 years of our relationship. That's kind of like what happens. And we moved on our own to New York, and we weren't we were the only ones that we had. And, like, I'm like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. And then it kind of got like to a point where it was an undeniable amount. And then he was in the hospital like pretty consistently. And then one time, like for an entire month straight. And it just was like, okay, this isn't just like, something else is going on here.
Like it's scary.
You couldn't deny it anymore, and that kind of thing. So I think it was a mixture of just like honestly love, but then like concern, and just like feeling really defeated. Like I'm so over this. Like let's do something else about it.
And plus, like, so your your dad got sick in the same time that you were kind of getting sick too, right? Josue?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like what
Yeah.
was, did his, I know like you don't have kidney disease and diabetes, but did you, I mean, my dad passed away too. So like, I know that like the hard part about that is, and I just wonder like, did that like trigger, was that very scary for you to go, oh my gosh, like my dad, you know, it's your dad. Like, does this have something to do with him, or like what was going on with like having, you know, dealing with the medical
so I definitely
conditions?
thought, like my first thought was like, wow, this is a stressful situation. And knowing that I already had what I had, I was like, wow, I can't get more stressed out. But it is causing a stress on me, and I need to like process this somehow. And the other thing I keep to like, wow, I was already trying to actively not go down that route. So for me to fall into that route even more of getting more sick, I was like, wow, I was trying really hard to like avoid this, like in the first place. And here I am, and in the same situation that pretty much he's almost in. Like it was, I don't know.
Because you're young, but he was still young too. Like he wasn't super.
There was a lot of contributing factors with his situation. Like he also had like one kidney transfer and 2 lung transplants that had happened at the same time. And it's like a liver transplants that had happened. And so it's like, there was just so many different factors that played into his situation. But what it made me think was like, wow, I wish I would have had all this knowledge of like food and education
from the beginning,
or just anti-inflammatory diets or things like that.
Sure.
That I would have able to almost save him, I think. Was my thought with it.
Okay.
I mean, you never know. That was just what my thoughts with it.
Yeah. So how long have you been like keto from this point? Like from the point, like what was it like when how long were you keto by the time like he was going through his process? Like
No, I started after.
Oh, after.
I did the keto after, yeah.
After.
He had passed away March 13th.
Okay.
And then we didn't start till January, the following January.
Did that circumstance like push you motivation wise? Like, all right, let me get my shit together.
No, I felt like I had taken on his disease into my body. Like,
oh, really?
Because that's the year that I was extremely sick. The whole time, every month, super sick. My mom probably thought that I was going to die every night. Like, it was just really bad. And it was hard because like we're across the country and like not being close to the family after just having been with my family for the past year, watching my dad. And they're like, wow, now my little brother is going through this. At least that's what my brothers thought. Or like, my mom's like, wow, my son's literally going through the same, like, what is happening? So that's honestly, I was like, well, I need to try anything.
Like looking for anything. And thank goodness.
And luckily for me, it was this. And I had heard like the negative side effects of this as well. But I was also like very much like, it's actually working for me for some reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if anything, like the keto helped reset my hormones. And I think that's
a big factor. And I think there's not a lot of research either, like in the keto diet. Like there's some obviously, but like I feel like doctors, like your doctor didn't even know, like what this is like. It's so unknown at this point in certain facets, you know. And I find it really awesome that like she even supported you completely through it. Like she was like, you know what you're doing is working, and we're taking your vitals, and you're rocking it out of the park, and let's keep going, keep doing what you're doing, and see where it takes us. Because like the positive numbers were changing. You know, for you, and you guys were, you know, and Michael was supporting you throughout it, and gosh, it's crazy.
Yeah, we're planning on going in New York in May for my birthday, and I kind of want to stop by her office just to kind of like,
oh my gosh,
see
you
her
have
again,
to,
and kind of give her like a shock, like what?
Like, hey.
We would always joke with her, like she would come visit at the hospital and stuff, and she would always like, I would kind of sometimes like
get into it,
speak up a little bit, maybe more so than I should have, but just like, I'm like, well, why? Like, I don't get it, this and that, whatever. And anytime that she would see me, she's like, hi, Michael, like, how's it going? You know, like, oh, you're here. Like, I'm not surprised that you're here again, kind of a thing. And I remember one time, like, she had mentioned something. I don't even know what we were talking about, but I was like, don't worry, doctor. Like, you'll be invited to the wedding. And she was just like, oh, okay, like whatever,
sure?
So, and she was a pretty like essential part in like he said, literally keeping him alive, because who knows how much worse it would have gotten if it just went untreated, or if she wasn't as invested in his case, or if it was misdiagnosed, or whatever the case might have been. It could have just been so much worse and so much more detrimental in the end.
Or even, I was going to say, like, even the validation, like when she takes a test and like, oh my gosh, it's positive, it's positive, it's positive. Like every time she's taking urine analysis or a blood work or whatever she's doing, like to reiterate to you, you're on the right path. You're on the right path. Like even if it's monthly, you're on the right path.
It was definitely validating, especially because the first couple months it was all, hey, let's just try out taking this much medication, and then we'll see your results, and then it's like switching it. So it was almost like a science every couple of weeks that we'd go in, because it's like, okay, now you need to take this much dosage, but then less of this, and then next time it's a little bit more of this actually, and then this, until we found the right balance where I was like, okay, I can finally just sustain myself.
And that's with 13 different pills, though. Like 13 different pills
so
a day. Like what?
Oh my
the heck?
gosh. So how many are you on now?
I am happy to say that I'm on zero
Medication. Which is phenomenal.
And he has been ever since we started keto.
Like ever since we started. Yeah.
Ever since he got off after that like 2-month or 3-month mark, that's when he stopped like for good. And he got like I think 2 blood tests after that time, and those had both shown very normal levels.
You're back
of everything.
to like rocking it.
And then that's when we moved back from New York to California, and I don't think we've had any tests or seen anything.
We haven't yet, but I just got my benefits.
Yeah, insurance.
I'm gonna get my my
insurance
out,
is huge. So like we're.
But like in the meantime, like keto on and off has been kind of like what's been keeping me motivated and on track with my stuff and health.
Yeah, we just feel like we have like our life back.
Yeah. And I don't think like to everyone listening, I don't think it's like completely sustainable. Like it's not something you should do for a whole year.
So how do you guys cycle with it?
So yeah, that's a great question. Like the way that I do is like I'll probably like block out maybe a month and a half to 2 where I'll like really commit to it. And by committing to it, it's just like making sure that I'm eating high fat during the day, a couple pieces of protein or anything protein, and then some carb.
What are your carbs? Like just vegetables, like broccoli?
My carbs are mainly vegetables, but if I want a piece of toast, like I'll eat a piece of toast.
Yeah, like you'll feel it. Like if you're like, okay, I need this.
Yeah, like I'll kind of pick and choose, but most of my carbs definitely just come from the vegetables. My protein's coming from my meats that I'm eating. And I do love avocado. Avocado has been my best friend.
Oh, it's my best friend too. Like I don't think I'd survive without it.
Yeah, same. And the oil, just in like the stuff that you cook with, I think has been huge, which is something that Michael's been really supportive about, like just getting different things to cook with, whether it's like spices or stuff to make things tasty.
Oh, to flavor it, yeah.
The flavoring stuff, yeah. I think that
what kind of oil, like do you use avocado oil to cook with?
We have like, I think we have Kalamata olive oil right now that we've been using. But we have like, we use coconut oil for like cooking spray.
Okay, yeah.
And then I've used avocado oil before in the spray form, like from Trader Joe's. But I like the Kalamata olive oil from Trader Joe's because it says the acidity, and I just think that's more like genuine. I guess a lot of the times, like, I don't know, one of my friends told me something about like, if it doesn't say the acidity, like, I don't know, it's just less like
more contaminated, or it's like watered down, almost.
Less easy to like, trust kind of thing.
It's like virgin olive oil acidic level.
But I also use like the Kerrygold, like grass fed butter. I like that.
Yeah,
like if I were to make like eggs and so I think I use butter probably more, but like we just made Brussels sprouts and like I'm going to use olive oil for that. And then like this morning we made like this keto waffle thing. And we used like coconut oil cooking spray. So just also different things. Also like nuts have good fats. We don't really do like that much dairy and like cheese kind of thing, but that's another option
which is positive though that you're not. I mean, in the grand scheme, but it's okay too.
Yeah, you can definitely get carried away. There's a lot of keto people out there like, okay, just because you're trying to hit your fat goal doesn't mean that you need to go eat a block of cheese. Exactly. Like you can figure out
bacon.
And even being this is I think my 3rd or 4th cycle on it. Like I'm even learning now, like, hey, I don't have to eat all the bacon every single time. Like there's different things that I can supplement for a good fat. To kind of like, yeah, I don't know.
Definitely.
To
Like,
play
yeah,
it.
we've learned so much.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the first keto meal that we made was like some like
burger, mac and
cheeseburger
cheese. Yeah,
casserole thing or
cheeseburger
something.
casserole.
It was ridiculous.
I
Like,
was
it
like,
was
wait,
more,
this is keto? Oh, this is heavy. Like, this is a lot.
it was more calories, I think, than we should have consumed like in a week. Literally, like, it was so bad. It was like ground beef, 3 different types of cheeses, like heavy whipping cream. Like, it was crazy. And
It was like
I remember just eating it and being like,
famous.
how is this okay? Like,
Yeah.
I literally do not
Yeah, I was
understand.
like, this
And I
can't be
remember he
okay.
was kind of like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Like, he's like, are you sure this is healthy?
Yeah.
That's
And that's when I was kind of like, okay, let me like look more into this and discover like why do they think this is keto? Like, why should I be eating this? And we haven't made that sense, obviously.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's
even now,
when-
like,
that's when
Sorry,
he
go
was
ahead.
feeling sick. Remember, he was like, sometimes this makes me feel sick because of the amount of fat. So it's like a transition thing. Like maybe that's when like
For sure.
you're like, oh, that would be a meal that would make me feel like, whoa.
yeah. But I think we eat pretty clean now. Like, it's
Yeah.
always like grass fed meat if we're gonna have like
Nice.
beef or anything like that. Free range chicken, free range eggs, lots of vegetables, like fresh organic mostly. We eat some fruit. Well, I don't know about Josue, but I eat some fruit like blackberries and raspberries and stuff. And then lots of seasonings. Everything like as fresh and organic as possible. I've definitely like learned how to be more comfortable in the kitchen because a lot of the snacks that you can get, like if you see anything like keto that's like in the stores or whatever, a lot of it's like a little bit more processed. I wouldn't like say that I don't eat it. Like I have definitely eaten certain things that are labeled keto before just because it's an easy thing to grab. Or there's also like so many alternatives that are not super terrible and they're not difficult to make if you were to just home make them kind of a thing. So like if you're craving something sweet, like there's easy alternatives that you can do to like make those things that are not including like some of the sugar alcohols or whatever preservatives that are put in like a package, something you could find that to make it at home. Yeah,
Yeah, because
exactly.
like I even found out I don't like that. What is it?
Erythritol.
Oh, yeah.
Erythritol.
Does
I
it
don't
give you
like that at all.
Very
diarrhea?
specific flavor, yeah.
And no, not even the flavoring. It just doesn't sit well with my body.
really?
It like hurts his
Okay.
stomach.
It like really hurts my stomach.
It's
and
known
I was
to
like-
give you diarrhea. I don't know
Yeah,
if that
I was
causes
like, what is
it for
this?
you, but I know a lot
So
of
now
people
I just
get
avoid
the
either I
poops.
avoid sugar altogether, or I don't like the supplements, like
yeah.
the supplemented sugar for myself
Yeah.
at least.
Me either.
Where I'm like, it's just easier just to not eat sugar.
I also learned like
I
different,
wish
like,
I
so
was
if
so-
I have like a craving for chocolate or like a craving for something sweet, I've learned that like sometimes that means that your body needs something.
Yeah.
So like I remember one time I was like really craving chocolate and I was like, well, I have these stupid macadamia nuts. Like, let me try to eat these. And I ate them and I was like, wow, like that actually squashed my craving. Like how weird. And I don't know if my body was telling me that I needed more fat because macadamia nuts are a really great source of fat, but
Well, there's so many
I don't know.
micronutrients.
It worked.
Well, nuts have so many micronutrients. I don't think people, I don't know, like
Realize it. Yeah.
realize it or talk about it enough. Like that you probably had the exact nutrient that it had when you're craving something like that. It's like, boom, you know.
No, and that's what's funny about your taste buds are like another brain because they know just in the same way. When you're craving something specific, it is because you have like a micronutrient that your body needs.
Deficit.
So,
Well, yeah, like
just
when you're on your
you crave-
period, or
Yeah,
let's
and
just
you
say
crave
menstrual
magnesium.
cycles. Chocolate means you need magnesium.
and steak.
Oh
and
yeah, I've
marinara
noticed.
sauces need-
I was gonna say I noticed like when I'm on my period, like I was talking to Brittany about this too, that like red
explicit.
meat is like I know red meat is like our best friend because both of us have like pretty low iron levels, and I
yeah.
think like that's just kind of what our body like.
Well, the
gravitates
iron
to.
is for the iron, you know.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if
high
you
in
decide, side note, just like a little life hack, if you decide that you want to have like spinach to get your iron, so like a plant-based one, it's a different kind of iron, and you just need you need to have vitamin C with it. So like having
To like absorb
To
it.
absorb
almost.
it, yeah.
Interesting.
yeah, so you can have like a spinach salad with some like lemon dressing.
Cool.
Love that.
That's great.
That
Just
sounds
side
great.
note.
Just random like hack.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah, I
hack
will
it.
say this has been like definitely a lot of trial and error for us. Now being a year later and having started with it, and now where we're at with things now, but um, I I still get like the keto flu or things like that people are like, oh, do you get sick and stuff like that? Yeah, but what for like a day?
Yeah.
But
One day. I was going to ask how long it lasted.
no, it's
So
more
you're-
like a day thing, like where I'm feeling like literally sick or like sniffly, and I'm like, oh no, coronavirus, but no, it's actually the
Make
flu.
sure we hashtag that because that'll boost
And
our
that's just telling
Google.
my body then, okay, I need to get more like nutrients in my body then, or like, maybe I'm not eating enough calories or something like that if I have a headache here and there. One thing that I found interesting is that when I go off it and when I'm like, okay, it's my cheat time or like just to eat like whatever regularly, however I want.
Yeah.
I haven't gone back to like, I'm going to eat just carbs or anything. Like, I don't like,
You're like, let's
I don't
eat
go crazy.
spaghetti. Like a
Like or
huge
something. I don't know.
bowl.
Before the first time I was like, finally I can have some chocolate cake or something like that. And now I'm like, I'm not even craving it.
You don't even want it.
Spaghetti and like French fry,
bread,
hamburger.
yeah.
Like I don't need all these things. Like I had chicken nuggets the last time and I was satisfied with that. I was like, yes, some
4 chicken nuggets. Yeah.
But I don't know. I've found that interesting.
Also, like with the whole thing with the keto flu, like I was super sick the first time that I started, and like to the point that I went to the urgent care and was like, something's wrong with me.
I'm dying.
And I was sick for probably 2 days the first time, like 2 full days. And now I might like feel a little bit wonky, but I noticed that like all I need is like electrolytes just to stay hydrated. So we got these like tablets from Whole Foods called Noon, and they're like
Oh, they're
electrolyte
good.
tablets, and they just
They're good
soak
for
in
a
water.
hangover
And they're so
too.
good.
Just saying.
Yeah, like anything. They have like
know.
immunity, extra electrolytes, like everything. And so literally like they were like, oh, like we don't know what's wrong with you when I went to the urgent care. And then I read all these articles about like you need to stay hydrated and you need to replenish your electrolytes because you're not getting those from some of the carbs that you would normally be intaking. And so they have like magnesium, sodium, and potassium in them. And then even if you get like I had the hydration one, so it had extra on top of it. And literally as soon as I drank one, like basically glass full, like a mason jar full of the drink, I literally felt better like right then. So I just know that I need to like stay hydrated, be on top of my, like, what are those called? Electrolytes, and you'll be good to go. And also like sometimes it's just a matter of like, okay, I know peanut butter maybe isn't like the best, most cleanest ingredient, but it has a little bit of carbs, has a little bit of fat, and it will satisfy like a craving. And it also like will get rid of a sweet tooth or like having a headache for not having enough whatever in your body, whether it be fat or calories or anything. So have a spoonful, like whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I had it.
So like, because your hormones, you didn't have like Cushing's disease. How did keto feel with you? How did you feel with it?
I definitely noticed like my period regulating. Now it comes like almost every 28th day, like almost exactly. Like I have like a tracker on my phone, and it's like probably the first like 3 months, it was kind of like within a week, which was normal for me. And I wasn't like taking birth control or like anything else to skew it. And then now it's like, if it's 2 days late, I'm like, oh, I must be really stressed because otherwise it's like coming pretty much every single time. And my cramps are a lot more manageable. They usually only like will last for like the first day. I don't know if that necessarily has anything to do with like hormones, but just PMSing in general, like I've noticed that difference. And then also like I struggle a lot with anxiety or have before. And this diet has insanely helped me. Just like feeling more balanced and like less nervous, not putting like such processed and refined sugars into my body, and then also like rebalancing my hormones in that sense. And I actually like when we first started, we did it pretty strictly from January until we went to Coachella in April. And then at Coachella, we knew that we were going to like have a pizza or a burrito or whatever. So we were like, okay, this is our time to like cheat, air quotes, if you will. And after eating for like 3 days, not keto and kind of just whatever I wanted and, you know, going out and like just being in the festival environment, I literally like when I came back, like just felt so panicky. I felt so anxious. And I was just like nervous just for no reason. And I was like, oh, that's so weird. Like among like being in the festival environment, like that can probably do that to anybody, I'm sure, maybe. But on top of it, then I was like eating totally differently than what I had in the past. And so I think that was like the proof in the pudding. Like that's all that I needed to pretty much like tell myself like, okay, this is something that works for me to manage my anxiety, and I should stick with that. Like that's what works, kind of a thing. And then we also, I know Danny and I have talked about the anti-anxiety diet, which starts with the ketogenic approach. And then after 6 weeks of like a detox, if you will, it like kind of works in more natural sugars. Like you're allowed to have fruits and all sorts of different things on if you were to follow that diet or that lifestyle. But that was kind of like my experience. Like I definitely lost weight. Not as much. I think in total I lost 30 pounds, maybe 28 pounds.
Yeah.
Well, you
Visually,
like since
it's a
when
big
I
difference
started.
too. Like,
Yeah, and
you
I
look
can like feel it.
amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, I can feel it for sure. And I could just feel it like in the way that my clothes fit and the way that my face looks, and like seeing muscles that I had never seen before from like toning. I was like, oh, this is weird. But it worked. So that was kind of a cool thing too. And then also like we had like learned through the process of like some other negative effects that could happen. Like, I know some people that I follow on Instagram and talked about like their hair starting to thin, like in certain areas, or like falling out or whatever. And they were researching like not having enough protein in their diet.
essentially what makes your hair
Yeah, like collagen and all that kind of stuff. So I was like kind of experiencing it, but I had always like had a lot of hair come out in the shower and in my hairbrush. So I wasn't sure if I could necessarily attribute that to keto, or like I know at my work, like our uniforms had some like weird talk about all of that. But so I wasn't sure what to attribute it to, but I started taking collagen in my coffee in the mornings. And that just helped a lot, like with my skin and my hair, and like even just hair growth, nail strength, all that kind of stuff. So I hope that I kind of either wasn't going to experience that, or like kind of did a preventative measure type of situation. But I know that there are like those negative side effects and like the supplements that you would need to take to kind of like prevent anything negative from happening. But I also think like the way that we cycle is kind of what makes it a little bit more sustainable as a lifestyle versus like just a crash diet kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think because you guys both, especially now, like you've talked about, knowing how to like listen to your body and stuff like that, like knowing what it means when you have a headache or when you have, that I think is definitely what stands out behind somebody who might have like a blind look into it and think that they have to have this rigid approach to it.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, oh, this is what it is. This is what it means. Okay, I'm just doing it no matter if I, feel sick for a week, not just 2 days, or having those different types of things, and not listening and taking care of their body as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like a lot of times we see people in society, like they'll go like, oh, Cheesecake Factory is a keto cheesecake, or like the process, like you guys are doing the healthiest way. But I feel like people, no, like I was at a swim team thing, and this white girl over here who's not at all a client of mine, but was sitting there talking about like, hey, this week Cheesecake Factory is having like a keto cheesecake. And I'm thinking like, that if you're keto, like that shouldn't be your like drive to like explode like keto in front of everybody. Like it's like a negative approach to like whatever you're doing, because it just seemed like that was somebody who would completely fall off the bandwagon. Like they're not doing it for health reasons, they're doing it for an aesthetic purpose. Like, oh, I can't wait to look cute in a bikini, and then I'm just going to jump off the bandwagon. I'm not like having a purpose within it. And I feel like you guys have like a super like influence purpose. Like you're healing something with Josue, and then you're supporting Josue, and you're going to join him in the mix, and like everything's working out for you guys in like the most positive, intentional. Your purpose comes from a very like amazing place, where like I think society has a fad diet when they think of keto, and even like as like people like me and Danny, or even health professionals, you see people like diving this like crazy realm, and we don't sometimes we need to hear stories from people like you who can put a light to it. Like there is a positive side of keto, and it's not all just like I don't know, an advertisement on TV saying we got keto cheesecake, join us to sell you a product. When reality is like there are people here healing their bodies in a way that even medical professionals oftentimes don't even understand. And I think that's something we would even probably Danny and I want to share with everybody is like, we may have last week had a cautionary approach, and this week we're like, hey, but don't let that persuade you, because sometimes there is a super positive side that could heal your body in some ways. And it's like, I think it's a really important thing in society to like bring all facets to the table so like we can make the best decisions in all of our life,
Definitely.
Like when it comes to health, whether this works or that works or whatever, like don't judge or don't make people feel bad or make people feel good about the positive changes in their life. And that has something to do with their health,
I think something that stuck with me from the last podcast that you guys were talking about was like when people are like morbidly obese, sometimes doctors would recommend a keto diet just to get the weight off, because it was like it's like the obesity is doing worse for their body than keto ever could. And I think like using that as like a starting point for like, it could just lead into like other health related discoveries. Like maybe they're realizing like, oh, there is something else that's wrong with my body, or I have a sensitivity or an intolerance or whatever the case might be. And using that in that sense versus like somebody who's like a size 8 who just wants to be a size 6, it's kind of like, okay, girl, there's just a different way to like approach that situation. And when it does become like a fad type of thing, and you're getting sick because you're not listening to your body, or you're not doing it consciously, you're not like consciously eating foods, you're eating this like 6,000 calorie cheeseburger casserole thing. Like, I mean, your heart's going to be like, what? Like, stop it. So, yeah.
Well, and that's what I was like wanting to bring up with the like nutrition side of it, was that, across different types of diets, if just weight loss is your goal and it's a manageable amount of weight loss, like 10, 15 pounds, across all different types of diets, adjusting your calories can be a more manageable approach with like less side effects. But then if you were to do keto, it's like if you were to start with that casserole, like maybe being able to figure out like it would probably be a lot smaller of a portion of
a bite.
Yeah, it's like you could literally have a bite and that's 500 calories. So just because like fats have so many more calories than carbs and protein. And so I get excited for like the future of nutrition, where it brings out, the knowledge in a lot of people like you guys to see like how what you eat can affect how your body, is working and can help your health, and like can do a better approach maybe than like the medicine helped you stay where you were at and like helped you stay alive. And then like what you eat can help you sustain that as well.
Yeah.
And then can do work as well. And then for some people who aren't at that level, like aren't that close to a lot of things, can use their nutrition to help prevent them from having to have medications and stuff like that. Anyway.
I think it's amazing how you took it upon yourself, Josue and Michael, to like wean yourself off the medication, because like you guys were learning like, okay, what is this medication doing for me?
Yeah.
I'm going to do this diet, and you know what? I want to wean myself down off of it eventually, so I don't have to be like stuck to it, because some of the medication can very well like keep you at the level. Like it can keep a fat production or even sugar production or like regulating your sugar levels to a point where like you can't go somewhere. So it's like really amazing that you guys were like, you know what, let's try it. You took it upon yourself, more than like even doctor recommendation.
I didn't even tell Michael.
I was like, I'm all like, I'm
I
all
was
like being
very,
nice, like waking up early, setting his medicine out for him, like whatever. And then I come home and it's still there. And I was like, what?
No, I think the first times I would like put it back in, like as if I had taken
To
it,
make it seem like,
like I had taken
you
it.
sneaky.
But yeah, I don't know. I was always like, well, I remember that I would wake up and take this medication because I was feeling some type of way. And now I'm waking up having ate, keto or whatever and not feeling that way. So I'm like, maybe I don't need it. Let me try that out. So it was a huge amount of like listening to my body, listening to like how I felt that morning or that day. And don't get me wrong, like I still brought it with me to work just in case. Like I always had that like thought of like, oh man, just in case something goes bad or if I'm feeling really sick. And I had a friend at work that was also like very in tune with like nutrition, and she highly recommended the anti-inflammatory diets and all that. So it was good having like that support system also at work, and then being like, hey, like if you're feeling sick, like I'm gonna tell you that you look sick or something like that. Like I'm not afraid to call you out on it because I had already opened up to her about this. So it was nice, like keeping me on check on all areas with that.
So Michael at home, and then your buddy at work, and then you being like, hey, like yay or nay, like, ugh, that's hard, but you did it.
One of the things that I think is an interesting subject with keto is alcohol on keto.
Yeah, I was
think a lot
wanted
of
to
people
ask
are
it.
curious about that.
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you do?
How we did it. I think once after I was off my medication and I started reintroducing alcohol into the thing, like I personally started giving up beer first. I think that was one of the things that I let go. And I would go either for something that was very low sugar, something like a seltzer. I was very, very keen on, or just like vodka soda. Very, very minimal on like sugar and stuff like that. But that was one area that was a little bit of a challenge, personal one, because I was like, I'm in a career where you're like constantly going out or like doing things like that.
Oh, we're also still young.
And
like,
we're very young. Yeah. And in New York.
Yeah.
In New York, people want to go out. So
You don't have kids yet. You're just like rocking it.
yeah, but it was like setting a limit too. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna have like 2 drinks or something like that, like not go crazy. So that was always an interesting. I know a lot of people are like, oh, we can't drink alcohol.
I
while
can
you're on
never have
keto.
alcohol again.
Yeah, I never restricted myself.
And she
I
never did
always
at all,
yeah. Literally, I think like the 3rd day that I was on keto, I went to brunch with one of my friends, and she was like, "Aren't you even supposed to not drink this?" And I was like, "Girl,"
That's the one part where we want.
I'm like, "Just hold the juice. That's sugar." I'm like, "I'll just get my calories and my carbs in other ways." Like, I just
carbs.
choose it. Yeah, and I think. Like I've noticed right now, I never gave up beer until just recently. We're doing like no beer for Lent, but so I've already noticed that like I've just from not drinking beer at all, I've already lost like a couple of pounds doing that. So I know that there are like, positives and whatever benefits from not doing that, whether it be on keto or off of it. And I know that like, if you're going to drink, like know that that's a carb that you're ingesting, and just be aware of it. It's not necessarily a good or a bad thing, but it's just
just
being aware. Yeah.
One glass of red wine is okay if that's something that you're craving.
And there are lower carb like drinks that you could substitute if you're super want beer. Like you could have a low carb, like a light beer or Michelob Ultra. Or, I know we've done like the White Claw seltzers. Like I don't know. There's just ways to adjust.
Should keto give a like fist bump to White Claw and Trulia?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I know. If we could be like sponsored, White Claw sponsored.
White Claw truly sponsors ASAP and vodka. Let's pick which one we want. Just kidding.
There you go.
Hey, we don't get
But that
paid
was
yet. We're
definitely,
doing
something
this
that we
for
wanted
fun.
to bring up that we brought up like last week was like just being conscious and
Yeah.
like
And
no matter what
everything.
you do in life, just being conscious and watching out for yourself, and that's
Yeah. I've definitely felt that this whole time.
Yeah. So we're at an hour and 3 minutes. So we're going to close this, but I want to give a huge thank you, shout out to you guys for like opening up and being like so honest and so genuine and authentic through the questions, because sometimes it's hard. Like even me and Danny were nervous, like to be like, how do we ask this?
We were too. We were nervous.
Question.
well, yeah, like maybe there's something that you guys didn't want to share. We're like, okay,
No, no.
because we're a family and we know a lot.
Yeah. I think
Yeah, we are
Josue's been like
family.
looking for an outlet to share his story and like to be just like authentic and to share the knowledge that we've like learned through all of this, especially for people who were like him and who are like in a medical issue and didn't know and kind of had nowhere to turn to and were feeling like that desperation. So there is hope if you're out there.
There is hope. And there's so many alternatives. And I love this story like beyond belief because Michael and Danny are cousins, so I'm the married-in cousin, and Josue and Michael are
married-in cousin.
Yeah, Josue will soon be the married-in cousin also.
Yeah, so me and Josue are on a team, and no, no. But I just want to thank everybody for listening, and we are so grateful for all of our like gung-ho subscribers and whatever, but because we don't have very many yet, but we are grateful for you guys to be here today and share your story because you're our first interviewee.
Oh, awesome.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah, and so next week we're gonna do another diet get up, and we love you guys. And thank you, and we're out.
In a healthy way as well. So to see the balance of it and where their perspectives and journeys kind of come from.
Yeah, so I look forward to interviewing them. This
I'm
will be
excited.
like one of our first like interviewer, like where we're really like pumped about even learning from their story and being able to put it out there for people that it can be done healthy and you can follow, like utilize your doctors and dietitians to kind of guide you in a way so you can make sure you're doing the best thing for you and staying in that healthy body that we want and living a long, optimal, healthy life. So we're going to let you guys go this time. We're so excited to be here with you. And thank you for listening. And we can't wait to share their story next week.
Yeah.
So
Talk to you soon.
thank you. Bye. I Pick Fit. Thank you for listening to I Pick Fit podcast.
If you liked our show and want to know more, go to either ipickfit.com or shesustainable.com.
Please leave a review on iTunes and subscribe to our channel.
Feel free to email us anytime with any questions or topics of interest at ipickfitdanielle@gmail.com. iPickFit.